Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with none other than Bill Hudson. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Hanging with my dogs at home.
I'm quarantined. I'm pretty much stuck at home, and so perfect timing to sit down and talk to you because we've never chatted, and we didn't get to talk when NorthTale released the album last year. So I figure this is a good time to talk about you, talk about the album, talk about the band, talk about what's happening in the world, and I think that's perhaps the best way to start is how are you taking this whole coronavirus, this whole quarantine? How is it impacting you right now?
Well, I'm in a interesting position because, this is my life when I'm not on tour. Like I'm not, I don't have like a day job. I don't have a place that I go to during the day for whatever reason other than the gym. Like normally when I'm home, and I happen to be home anyway. I just sit around and work on music. I teach students online, so it's there's not much of a change as far as I myself, like as far as I'm concerned. My wife, on the other hand, she happened to be working in China, and she was home on vacation when this whole thing happened. So we are in an interesting position where she's home, but she's having to work from here in China times, essentially.
Oh, wow.
And then she's hearing the stuff coming from China from the people from there, and she's all uneasy for being here because, oh man, my work, I should be there. It's whereas I'm like, I'm loving it. I'm like, oh, I have my wife at home because otherwise I would be home not touring and she wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just, I was already working on the new NorthTale album anyway. So I'm just continuing doing that. But now, because I'm hearing about some of the things that I had coming up getting canceled, I'm like writing other musical projects too. I'm like, oh, you know what? That one project with this guy that I always said I wanted to do, we're gonna do this now.
Yeah.
It's just a very creative time for me. It's cool.
And you barely made it out of Europe in time before the borders start to close because you were there with I Am Morbid. You guys playing some shows in Sweden. And did you feel like almost like the doors were closing behind you, or you guys had enough time to get out of there?
Oh no, dude! I don't feel like we made it just in time either because it was 11 days, I think. We people were talking about it, but nobody was freaking out or anything. Granted, we were in Sweden, where I don't, well, anyway, they weren't even talking about like people were mentioning or whatever. Oh, did you hear about the virus? But at no point did we see anything that was weird. So I'm not too, it never felt like oh shit, we made it out just in time. And I did talk to a lot of friends, man. Probably like 5 or 6 different people that were having to leave Europe that day. Like they're on tour and fuck, we gotta go home. Like we're stopping and going. Those guys, compared to those guys, like by the time those guys were trying to get to the airport, I was already home recording, hanging with the dogs.
How do you think this is going to impact musicians in the short and then in the long run? Because this for you guys who not only it's going to give you a chance to create music, but it's taking away the chance for you to earn money for being on the road. So how do you think metal musicians, the metal community, how you think this is going to shape up the scene and the community in general?
Well, quite honestly, that's been in my head a lot in the past couple hours. It's definitely going to change the way people consume music. First of all, man, I hate to say stuff like that because, it's really who I am. But like certain things that I grew up with and that I do are just quote unquote for old people now, period. A lot of things are. And I think that and when I say for old people, let me clarify that. I don't mean that in a mean way. I really mean that kids, people that move the market, people that spend money on music, people that actually enjoy and consume music, those people are not interested in what I do or what we listen to. there's a whole generation that's never bought a CD. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like there's a whole generation that to them, like I just did a podcast with Eluveitie the other day, the URM podcast, and I was talking about this. Like when I started playing guitar and I got interested in Yngwie, the older people would tell me, "Oh, you got to go listen to Hendrix." But Hendrix to me sounded so out of tune and ugly, and it took me years of being a musician to appreciate that because I was too young, you know. So I feel that the new generation listens to a lot of what I believe in and the things that I do the same way. Now, I think that was happening regardless of the virus. The virus, right off the bat, you know, canceled everybody's shows. And it's not like when it goes back, people are going to go to shows. They're not,
Yeah.
because they're going to be freaked out.
Yeah.
So I would go as far as saying that we're seeing the end of live concerts in the sense that we appreciate them. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It might be a thing where I can see a future where most concerts are streamed and just the people who pay VIP prices get to be there. You know, you have to like, so you in essence, you're playing a concert for 5,000 people streaming, but there's like 17 VIPs watching you. You know, I can see that becoming the norm. I can see development in software to like, so you can, the same way that we can control the in-ear mix from our phone. I can see, you know, 10 years from now, people having developed software where you watch Iron Maiden. Look at me being an old guy again. In 10 years, where you can watch, you know, Billie Eilish in 10 years, and you can choose not to hear her voice, or just the drums, or just the, you know, just the samples.
Like on demand, everything on demand.
Exactly. So you have that power. Now, that's gonna cut an entire demographic out of the industry. And I'm struggling with the fact that I think that I might be part of that. So I'm trying not to, you know. This is a time where guys like us that grew up in the 80s, they grew up in the 90s in my case, but I think like in the 80s.
80s.
This is the time for guys like us to look into the future. There is no way out now with the virus because now there's social distancing. All the little crowds that we had, now they're freaked out to be around one another. Shows that would have 150 people now are gonna have 42. You know what I mean? And as much shit as the YouTubers get, those guys are one step ahead. You know, like, not to mention that the musicianship at this point on YouTubers is fantastic. You know, I used to be one of those guys that would watch YouTube and be like, that's just exercises and blah, blah, blah. No.
You change your mind.
No, dude, there's some 16-year-old girls playing like light years ahead of what most people my age play, you know, and they wouldn't know who Eddie Van Halen is. You know what I mean? It's a whole different thing. It is the future. And I feel that for the music industry, the virus is like, it's like, well, if you didn't embrace change now,
you have no choice.
Yeah, because if you really think about it, everything that the virus is causing are things that were already happening. Like, it hurts my ear when I'm talking to a friend of mine and he says he's working on a CD. Who the fuck buys CDs? You know what I mean?
I'm even surprised the vinyls made a comeback because I thought the vinyls were completely done and over with.
But it's a collector thing.
Yeah.
Vinyls are not moving millions. You know
No,
what I mean?
definitely.
So
like my son, for example, I don't think he's ever purchased a CD. I mean, he's at the point now where he doesn't even purchase the full albums most of the time. He just purchased the songs that he likes within that album.
That's the future. To me, that's the future. Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, it is. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That's the future. Yeah, artists release, and that happens in mainstream music. That's been happening in mainstream music for years. You know, artists don't release albums anymore. Or they release 10 singles and then an album that has all the 10 singles in them, but the 10 singles were already out.
Yeah.
So I think that we gotta embrace the future. And I have a hard time with that, man. You know, I still want to be Slash. You know, I still want to put my foot on the monitor and play really fast guitar solos and have chicks showing their boobs. None of that exists anymore. Chicks don't want to show their boobs to musicians. Guitar players don't give a fuck if they play fast. Long hair is a thing of the past. Like, all that is gone. All that is gone, fucking gone, and it's not coming back. You know, like,
one of the things I love about you is that you don't hold back. Whatever's on your mind, you always honest with your thoughts, and you don't do that a lot these days.
If we were doing this very interview 2 years ago, I would be saying completely different things with the same conviction. I would be saying, fuck all these kids, they're all this YouTube shit, and the true metal, they don't even know what metal is. These kids don't know the difference between screamo and real metal. They never heard Bruce Dickinson in their lives. That's the kind of stuff that I used to preach and that I used to believe in. Until I'm like, wait a second, you know, like, change is gonna happen whether I accept it or not.
Exactly.
So I can choose to be left behind, like a lot of my friends are doing, or I can try to adapt. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I speak my mind. I think there should be more musicians saying this. Because
I think so too, because you hear a lot. I mean, I know because I have a lot of friends in the business, so I know the difficulties that you guys go through in terms of earning a living, doing what you're doing, how hard it is to earn a living doing what you're doing. And I think sometimes people hide those things because they still want to present this facade of the rock star lifestyle, which is in reality not really true for 95% of the people in it. I mean, it may be true of Guns N' Roses, Metallica, whatever, but the 95% of the guys in the business are living like show to show, you know what I mean? Tour to tour.
And by the way, the rockstar lifestyle, speaking of embracing the future, even if you are to live that style, younger people don't like that. We grew up thinking it was awesome to throw TVs off balconies of hotels because you're a millionaire. Young people would laugh at that. Be like, the fuck's your problem? You know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, whether or not we like it, I'm just saying it is. You know, it's like Motley Crue would all be sued for sexual assault if they were around right now doing anything like that. People would be suing them left and right. You know, they wouldn't have a career. The second they put out a song called Girls, 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 they would be canceled.
Yeah, and you have to also think the fact that with social media now, when things happened, you would only hear about it if it was like word of mouth, like things didn't get necessarily out, right? Like if you did something crazy backstage and somebody's there with a cell phone, before you pull your pants up, the video is already on YouTube, on Twitter, on TikTok, whatever, right?
Dude, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, that's also a change. You know, like if you worked your entire life to be a musician to achieve those things, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
It's not going to be there for you.
And yeah, so, but yeah, back to your to what you were saying about a living show. Look, in my particular case, I have no problem telling you or anyone that I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do, because I do live show to show. I've been making a living solely of basically playing gigs for, God, man, a good like 6 or 7 years now, or maybe before that. I did other stuff like teaching lessons and stuff, but like, you know, being on the road constantly like that. I mean, it's been a good 6 or 7 years. So I don't foresee myself being able to play 150 shows in the next 2 years, because that's kind of like, well, the average I've been doing it has been like 100 to 110 a year, right? There's no way that I'm gonna do 110 shows by this time next year with everything that's happening. Like, there's no way. It just is not gonna happen. Now, Not, a lot of the money, a lot of the good money that I made, I had in stocks, you know, and now that's down.
Yeah.
So now I had a very good portfolio. I was up close to 20%. Now I'm down close to 20 to no, not close to 20%, but I'm down probably more than 10%. So it's like all the profit is off, and then some of the money that I had invested. So like all these are considerations there in my head all the time. But instead of bitching and being like, oh, this is bullshit because nobody's buying my records, I just like, okay, how can I embrace the future? How can I work with what I got? And that's, I mean, I'm starting. I want to do this. I want to do Welcome to Paradise. I want to do a full guitar playthrough of every song. I'm gonna do it in the upcoming days. That's something that I think people will appreciate being home. We'll bring new fans to the band since we can't play real shows anyway.
Yeah, and that takes me to the other thing is right now the way the music scene is, and this. I mean, you play in so many different bands outside of NorthTale. I mean, you have your resume is super extensive. You know how it works. Sometimes these bands, like NorthTale, for example, you have members from different countries, different parts of the world. With all these travel restrictions, it's not like you guys can even get together and play a live gig that you could stream. Even that right now is out of the question for most bands.
Yep, it is, man, and for most bands, yeah, because I mean, yeah, it's not just the case with NorthTale. It's become commonplace for bands, even bigger bands, to look for musicians worldwide at this point. So you can see even like a traditional band from that started when everybody was from the same town, and now there's like three guys from there and then two from a different country. So again, the future. It's like, how the fuck are we gonna do that? Somebody needs to develop a software that truly works for jamming. I think that's the first step. Like for a band to rehearse. There's Jammer or whatever. There's a few websites, but I've never seen it work seamlessly. So I think that's the first step. Somebody needs to figure out how to do that. Then, bands can start trying to figure out how to perform to an audience that way. But I mean, but in order for people to even start thinking about that, they need to accept that it's a reality. If there's anybody sitting at home waiting for shows to be rescheduled and counting on them, dude, you're in for a rude awakening.
I agree with you, sadly, but I agree with you. I think there's some positives from this, that in terms of how people consume the music. For me personally, I'm listening to more music now than I was listening before because I have nothing else to do. What am I going to do? I'm just replaying some of the old records that I haven't heard in a long time, listening to new albums. So from that perspective, people are going to have the opportunity to buy stuff on iTunes and listen to it. But I think, as you know, where the income of musicians is coming from is really not from those platforms. It's really from the merch and the live gigs. So there has to be some sort of shift. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, how long it's going to take, but there's going to be massive growing pains. You saw with bands that had to cancel their tours and took a huge bath on their money.
Man, I feel so bad for some of my friends. Some of the numbers I heard, I'm like, really? How are you gonna come up with that?
Yeah, because all the money had to be paid up front. Like you're looking at visas, you're looking at travel costs, bus rentals, merch that you paid up front to get the merch done for the tour. Now you spend X amount of dollars up front, and now you were counting on that merch to be sold, on the VIP tickets at the shows, all of that, and now that income is gone. I honestly, and then it's not like people can help them either, because now people are going to be in financial issues themselves. Mm-hmm. So I honestly don't know how this is going to play out, but I think bands that are not very well established, or they're on the fringe, or they may have some difficulties, you may see some bands almost disappear.
Oh man, and that's the part of this that like I hate to say it, but it's the truth. There will be some cutoff. There will be some people that make music half professionally, if that makes sense. Like the people that tour like 3 months out of the year and then have a regular job as well, but they still get to have the band. Those people are even deeper trouble, I think. Like people are just not gonna go see shows. They're just not. You know.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't know. Things
like
are.
you said, even when the situation clears up, it's gonna take. It took time to escalate it, and it's gonna take time to de-escalate it. So it's not like if the virus is gone tomorrow, everybody's gonna go see a live show the next day. It's just not. People still gonna be worried. People still gonna be scared. It's gonna take some time.
Look, the latest date that I have booked that hasn't been canceled is Prague Power, and that's
It's
September.
September.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's not happening. You know what I mean? If it happens, it will be a great surprise. But I mean, I'm assuming because in their case, they also have to deal with the musician visas and all that. You know, like it, I hope it happens. It's a festival that happens every year. It never didn't happen. I played there 6 times with different bands. It's my favorite festival. But you know, when I think in my head, I'm like, you know, is that even gonna happen? The
I was even thinking the bigger
the
festival.
Dora tour hasn't been canceled. Yesterday, she posted a video saying that you know the Germany tour was canceled, but she didn't know about the U.S. But I mean, dude, that would be awesome if it happened now. You know that would be awesome. But I cannot build the expectation in my head and then be like, God damn it.
Yeah, I think it's better to expect not to happen and then be happily surprised that if it happens, than
Mm-hmm.
the other way around. Because I think as you start getting closer to the summer, I think you're going to start to see some of the bigger festivals like Wacken, for example, having to pull the plug. I just don't see how you can have a festival with 80,000 people when there's something like this floating around. I mean, all it takes is one person to be sick, and the whole thing is going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, metalheads in general are smarter people. Like, I can't see 80,000 people wanting to go. You know, like they know they're reading, they know what's happening. You know? I don't know, man. I really this is gonna be a shitty year
Yeah.
for well, yeah, a shitty year, a year of change, I should say.
Yeah, I think it's going to be we're going to be much different in 2021 than we were in 2019 as humanity. As you look at as us as human beings, there's going to have to be a cultural shift.
But honestly, there's things that I think will be positive. Like, for example, my wife, I mean, I'm using her as an example because she's at home and I'm seeing this, but I know it's the case with a lot of people. She is working from home, and she normally has to go to an office and do the same thing. And I'm always wondering about her, about all these people that I know, that I'm like, why do you have to go to an office if you can do this work from home? Now people are being forced to do that. I think that will show a lot of bosses and companies that this can be done, that is not the end of the company, and you can actually save a bunch of money. So stuff like that will be, I think, will be
Yeah, there's definitely going to
actually
be.
positive in the long run.
So let me ask you this: as you're working in new material for NorthTale, is there going to include a ballad about coronavirus?
A ballad about, you know, I I posted something on Facebook like, oh, there will be a bunch of songs about the coronavirus. But dude, if you really think about it, it's a very inspiring topic. You know what I mean? It's it's almost like a science fiction book. Like
Yeah.
the way it happened, all the things that if you want to go deep into the conspiracy, how much there is, it's like, come on, did that really happen on accident? All these things can be songs. So I think I'll end up doing definitely doing something about that. I don't know if a ballad is more like a really aggressive song.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more almost like a death metal song or at least a really good power metal song more than a ballad, that's for sure.
Well, I'm gonna say this right here, for the first time, because I haven't. I mean, because there's not a name, because it's just a project right now. But I'm working with a few friends of mine on what when it comes out, you will see what I mean. But like, imagine like the Bizarro Superman, the Bizarro Batman, or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
working on a project that would be like the Bizarro North Tale, which is essentially the same power metal, neoclassical shred kind of stuff, but with a growler.
Oh, wow.
Vocal melodies. Like the melodies will be on guitars, orchestrations, but the way the songs will flow will be very similar. So it will be power metal songs with growling vocals, you know? I mean, it's been done before. Like Children of Bodom did that with Stratovarius. To me, that's when I heard them at the time, that's what he sounded like. I was like, oh, he's just Stratovarius with a guy growling. So I'm working on something like that. And some of these coronavirus ideas are actually going into that because it's so aggressive. You know, it's much more aggressive music.
Yeah, it needs that. It needs that. The lyrical content has to match the aggressiveness of the music. And I think with harsh vocals, with a growler, I think you can pull that off. You having played in so many projects, so many bands, how much of you is NorthTale? How much of your DNA is in the band?
All of it, all of it. How do I say this without sounding like an asshole? But it's like it's all me. You know? It's not only all me; it's all of me. So how can I? Most of these songs I had the initial idea when I was like between like 15 and 19 years old. Of course, I developed it now, you know, and it's become what's become. But Shape Your Reality was the first song that I wrote. And I wrote the lyrics, I wrote everything on that song, that particular song. And that is a good representation of what I was trying to do. Because even though power metal is my favorite kind of music, is the closest to my heart, I never really played it. I mean, I was in this band called Celador 13 years ago. We were somewhat power metal. We were like an American answer to Dragon Force. We did some big tours at the time, but it wasn't like NorthTale is. Like NorthTale has I say like NorthTale is what I sound like. You know, like that is what I always wanted to do. And even the choice of the musicians, I mean, Christian had the voice, like when my dad heard the first demo with Christian, he's like, he sounds like you if you knew how to sing. I'm like, exactly, you know, because I sing on my demos, you know, but I can't really sing. So it sounds funny, but the melodies are there, you know. So, and Patrick, you know, is the drummer because a lot of people, a lot of musicians, when you're writing, they want to be so complex and different with the drums. And I disagree with that. To me, power metal is not much variation from that. 16th on your kicks, you're snaring the upbeat, and that's it. You know, you can switch. You can do, but in general, that's it. That's power metal. It's like a train. You know?
A train, yeah.
Patrick is the best at that because extreme metal drummers, like I play with Tim Young, you know, he's like one of the best, fastest drummers in the world, the Amorphis drummer, but he works at like 220 beats per minute. Then there's guys, more rock and roll guys that work at like 120. Now that 130 beats per minute to like 180, that takes a very specific kind of drummer. And Patrick is that, you know. And all these are things that has always been in my mind since I was a kid. How come there's not a band where every song is happy? How come there's not a band where, you know, because even my favorite power metal albums was always like the first 3 songs were fast and heavy, and then they started getting proggy, experimental. Yeah. I'm like, how come there's not a band that's more narrow, you know? So all these are things that I thought my whole life that I put together with this band. And the main reason that even worked was because it gets to be my band. I get to make the final decisions because in any other situation I'm at, the second I say, hey, I want a drummer that always does, I'll be like, oh, that's boring. I'll be like, oh, I want vocal melodies that are this high. Oh, no, that's too high, you know? So you need to be able to make these decisions. And it took me, I don't know, a fucking 10, 12-year career to get to that point. So welcome to I mean, I didn't write every song. Christian wrote the 2 ballads, and he also wrote the title track, and he wrote Rhythm of Life. Outside of those 4 songs, it's all me, and it's what I've always wanted to do. Really, really what I've always wanted to do. But especially, you know, through the 2000s and the late 2000s, I was always like, who's going to want to sign this? Who's going to want to buy this? Power metal is dead and all that stuff. And, you know, I always kept thinking that until I finally was like, fuck it. If they don't buy it, they don't buy it. I don't give a shit.
You're still going to do it.
Yeah.
Was it easy for you to convince those guys to come on board?
No, it happened very easy because Christian brought Patrick and Michael. When I hired Christian, I was trying other singers. Shape Your Reality has been sung by many people, maybe like 15, and even well-known singers too. But when Christian nailed it, I'm like, okay, that's the singer. I know that. So he brought Patrick and he brought Michael, our bass player. He already knew them both. And Jimmy and I were working with Vitaly Capri from TSO on his solo stuff. So it was almost like, okay, we're doing this. We're the best musicians I know for each part. And, you know, and it was that easy. You know, there wasn't auditions. I didn't have to be like, the only thing is that for a second I thought Patrick, because of his status, you know, that he would want like a lot of money and stuff. And I told him, dude, I mean, I can pay you, but this is an investment on both of our parts if you want to be in. And he never had a problem. So, and that was a decisive thing too, that it's a band, it's not a project where, you know, I make a bunch of money and I hire everybody else. That's not the case. You know, we split everything equally because I couldn't pay them at the beginning. So, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't very hard. It was almost natural.
How did it work with the label? Because did you guys shop for a label? Did the Nuclear Blast approach you guys? How did the label situation work out for you? Did you at any point in time look at maybe self-releasing?
That was the initial plan. The initial plan was to self-release it, and which I think actually nowadays, if you can't get a label, that's what you should do. You know, so we actually self-released a demo version of Shape Your Reality to see what happened. You know, and it got some pretty good interest. So Christian got an offer from a small label in Sweden that I mean, I didn't want to do it. He wanted to do it, but it was interesting how we got the offer before the song was out, just by saying that there was a band with these members, you know. So we got an actual offer, a contract. I'm like, okay, what will happen if we shot? But for a little while, Christian was like, we should go with this, and they wanted 6 songs. So we did the 6 songs, thinking to go, but I never signed a contract. You know, I'm like thinking that we would release with this label at the time. And then I was like, okay, well, how about instead of signing this contract, how about we try to shop? You know. So I only talked to Nuclear Blast because I knew Yap. You know, I've been friends with Yap for years. From other stuff, you know, from I Am Morbid. We met in Belgium a couple of times, and I emailed him, and I'm like, hey man, you know, I have this project. Would you be interested in hearing what is the procedure to submit material? So he told me what to do, and I sent it to him, and it took him a few weeks to get back to me. But I told, you know, I said, I'm like, you know what, until I hear that they're not interested, I'm not gonna sign the other deal. So when they got back to us, they were interested. I'm like, oh, perfect. We have half the album done, so we just have to do the other half now. So that's kind of how it worked. The EP, what was supposed to be an EP, never came out. We just did more songs, and made an album out of that.
When you guys went into the studio, you pretty much had already the whole album ready then by that point in time.
No, we kind of wrote and recorded at the same time. The process in NorthTale that we work on music is this: I record a demo at my house. It always starts with me. So it starts with a demo at my house where I play all my ideas. Now, if I don't have any ideas for a certain instrument or a certain part, then I don't put anything, you know. But if I do, I go, like, say I'm not a very good piano player, but I have ideas for piano breaks, So I'll do a very slow one on MIDI and stick it there, so Jimmy knows what I want to hear based on that. And then I'll be like, okay, but starting right here, I don't have any idea. So you go on with your own thing. That's basically how we write. So, but when I was doing these demos for them, I was basically kind of recording final guitars almost, because I was like, okay, why would I redo this all over again? So as we were recording, we were kind of tracking a lot of the solos. Yeah, they were demos, and I'm like, okay, this is good, so I'm gonna use this. Now we all did it at home as well. We never went into the studio. I'm sorry, that's not true. I did go into the studio in LA with my friend Damien Heino, the producer for Dragon Force. I did rhythm guitars for a couple songs with him, and Jared Pritchard in Orlando, because I was gonna reamp my guitar with Jared. But yeah, it was a lot of self-produced. It was a self-produced thing that we kind of wrote and recorded at the same time.
Wow, really interesting. And speaking of which, you guys just released a live video for Time to Rise in Japan, Tokyo, I believe, was recorded in Tokyo. Is that one of your favorite places to play, Japan?
Oh, yeah, it's probably my favorite place to play. Now, dude, Japan is interesting. I went over there the first time in 2007 with Celador, that band I was telling you, my first power metal band. Okay. And we played a huge festival. The headliner of the day we played was Heaven and Hell with Dio. I got to meet Dio this day.
Wow.
And it was, dude, it was us, Therion, Blind Guardian, Trivium, Nocturnal Rites. It was amazing. It was called Loud Park. So we played there in 2007. Now, at the time, this band of mine, we weren't really popular or anything. We had done a couple of tours, but the label was pushy, but we weren't known. We played at 10 in the morning, 10 or 11 in the morning at this festival. There was 20,000 people there, and they all knew the songs. They're all singing the songs. I'm like, how the fuck do you guys even know these songs? That was my first impression of Japan, So, I mean, there were fans at the airport, and I wanted to go to Tokyo and take the train. So, like, we had to have this whole strategy for me to come out of the building to be able to take the train, because there would be fans out there. I mean, I'm 21, 22 years old. It's my first band. I'm like, oh, man, I love this country. But I never went back. I didn't go back for like 10 years. I'm like, well, I guess Japan doesn't like me that much, But then when Evoken came, when the opportunity to do Evoken came, and I was like, oh man, I remember how it was 13 years ago. And I got there, and it's like it never changed. There were fans at the hotel, and they had the Celador album, the 13-year-old Celador album from back then. It's like that kind of dedication. I can't really explain what it is. Like, they're very respectful of arts, I guess. I don't know, man. There's something about Japan. And the funny thing is, you talk to Japanese people when you're out there, and you tell them this, and they're used to hearing it. It's kind of hilarious. It's like, it almost feels like walking up to like Arnold Schwarzenegger and being like, hey, man, you're my hero. He hears that all the time. He's like, okay, whatever. It's the same with Japan. I hear all these musicians. No, I want you to know I love your country so much. You guys are so amazing. They're like, okay, yeah, we know. Because they treat artists like that. They make you feel like that. I mean, we only played our second and third show with NorthTale in Japan, and we have fans. We still have fans. I mean, people who write us every day. Who love the band, who make tweets about us, who makes cartoons about us. Whereas if we try to play here in Florida, there will be 7 people in the bar.
Isn't that crazy though? Like, how I see that a lot. How do you think? How can I put this to you? Do you think it's a cultural thing that heavy metal music in North America just doesn't have the foothold that it had 20 years ago? And in Europe and in Asia, it's still one of the most predominant musical genres. Do you think that's what it is? Like, how do you explain this huge difference?
Well, I don't really agree that it's that huge. First of all, because that's a big mistake that a lot of that some people make. Metal is not that big in Europe. It's just that there's a lot of tiny countries next to one another. You know what I mean? I mean, it's bigger than it is here. You know, it's obviously bigger than it is here. And especially if you go to a country like Finland, you might turn on the radio and actually hear a Children of Bodom song
Yeah.
next to a Katy Perry song. You know, like something like that will happen in Finland particularly. Um, but I don't feel like metal is that big in Japan either. I feel that all music is big in Japan. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, NorthTale is pretty big, but if you're Justin Bieber, you're playing a stadium. You know, like it's almost like there's a what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, man, I can't remember. There's a proportion. You know, so NorthTale is this small. So yeah, it's great in Japan, but we're still pretty small there. You know, like uh, I don't think that there's. I think in Europe there's more culture, um, more metal culture, in the sense that metal was big in America when metal was a mainstream thing, because mainstream things get big in America. So at one point in the 80s and 90s, metal was mainstream, so it was big. And then when it wasn't mainstream anymore, then it wasn't big anymore. You know, that's honestly how I see it. The other day I saw a video of some Judas Priest show. They're interviewing some people in like 1980, I think it's Screaming for Vengeance tour in America.
Was it in Detroit? I think I've seen some from Detroit, which is
They're
really
talking
good.
to people in the parking lot.
Yeah, I think it's from Detroit.
Okay, so you see the ages. How old are you? I'm 17. How old are you? I'm 16. How old are you? I'm 18. These people don't go see Judas Priest anymore. Again, it goes back to that, in my opinion. You know, it kind of, the 16-year-old talking in that video will go to the show again, and that's why there will be people at the show, but his kid ain't gonna go see Priest. You know, so I hate to say it, but I think it's a generational thing again. You know, but in Europe, there's one thing happening, and it's coming here. It's starting to happen here. In Europe, there's the concept bands. You know, there's the, you know, even Christian's old band, Twilight Force,
Twilight Force.
Sabaton. There's all these bands that wear the costumes and have the concept. Now that in America, to the tough guys that want to fuck shit up in the pit, that's super cheesy. So they don't like that. But the younger kids do, you know. So that's why Sabaton is selling out in America. You know, they're not selling out the same size arenas yet, because I can totally see Sabaton being that big here in America too. But like this young, again, it's the young people. You know, we can talk shit about them all we want, but that's where the future in success of everything lies. You know.
But I think in terms of the young people, I see this from my son's perspective. My son is 14, and a lot of the shows here in Toronto, he can't go because they're 19 and over shows. So I think that is also hurting because, for example, for me, I always let me give you an example. I got into Machine Head because I saw Machine Head in Lisbon opening up for Slayer in 1994 when they released Burn My Eyes. And so by going to see Slayer and seeing Machine Head opening for them, I was like, wow, these guys are amazing. Next day, I went out and I bought the CD, and I've been a Machine Head fan ever since. If I couldn't go to that show, that at the time in 1994, I was 14. So at that time, if I couldn't go to that show at the age of 14, there's a band that I would perhaps never get into because I never saw them live. And I feel like seeing a band live helps develop your taste for other bands, because you may go see the headliner, but you end up seeing the opening bands and you discover bands that way as well, and it just expands your taste. And if you're taking that generation out of the concerts, once us the old guys stop going or we die or whatever, then who the hell is going to go next?
You see what you just said, man. Again, it's very sad, but I think I see metal and rock kind of like being like jazz is today. You know what I mean? It's still there. You can still go see it, but people don't really give a fuck about it. You know, um, I think that that's what's going to happen to our style, unfortunately. And the live experience you're talking about, man, there's another layer to this. NorthTale, in NorthTale, we choose not to play to a click and not to use backing tracks live. Now, it's not because I'm old school or anything like that. It's because I want to set us apart because now every band does that. It doesn't matter how bare bones your record is. Live, these bands are playing to a click. There's playing, there are vocals in the backing tracks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been live in a few years. So I think the younger people that see these shows don't know the difference, but they do know when a band is not doing it, and they're like, "Oh, that band doesn't sound so good. I don't know why." So
Yeah.
okay, so the same way, if you grew up with your earbuds watching live streams on Facebook, you go to a live concert, it's gonna sound like shit. You know, wait a second. So if I stand here in the center, I can hear everything. But if I stand here, I can't really hear that guitar player right there. Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, I agree with you.
But have you seen an orchestra tune up? Like you go and you see the musicians tuning up. Sometimes if they all hit the same note at the same time, it gives you chills. Even if they're just tuning up, because they're moving air. Is that when you hear the orchestra do the first chord, like even talking about it, you hear an orchestra do that first chord, the first Star Wars chords. It sends chills down your spine, but that is the power of the air moving, of being right there. I don't know that where the live shows are with all the backing tracks, all the camper, all the simulations. I don't know that it translates the same way to younger people, But there's no way to know either, because I do have the perspective of being there and seeing Iron Maiden play real amps, So I'll always compare. I'll be like, oh, this sounds like shit, compared. But if you never heard that before, if all you know is this, then what is your perspective, So again, it's one of those things that makes me question and try to understand how young people think, because like you said, if that has no value anymore, then what happens when we die? What happens when Iron Maiden is not here anymore? Probably nothing. That's what sucks, They'll continue go seeing the next DJ. Martin Garrix is like 20 years old. He has a 25-year career ahead of him. But then again, young people's tastes change, change.
Oh, yeah.
So in 20 years, people are not going to be going and seeing DJs like they do now. It will be something different. It will be something completely different,
And I think there's always the feeling of going back to the past and going back to a different era. Like I feel that not all hope is lost, but sometimes with businesses, they put the money ahead of perhaps even their own future. And I think that with I really worry about this when you're starting to take away a generation's ability to go to shows, to go to concerts, to go to festivals, to have, because it's not just about listening to the music, it's also about the spending time with other metalheads and exchanging ideas and exchanging that feeling of being in the pit or being at a show with a guy you don't know, but you look at each other, you listen to a song that you love, that bonding that happens at that specific moment is you can't duplicate that.
I agree, man. And it's funny you'd say that, because it always reminds me of like what you're talking about, people that you don't know, but you have that bond, Well, I was talking about NorthTale and how that's the music I've been wanting to do since I was 15, right? When I was about 13, Brazil, for some reason, started bringing power metal bands to the country for the first time, right? So when I was 13, I had never seen any of my favorite bands. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
We're getting a tour
plugging
of
my
your house.
what?
We're getting a tour of your place.
Yeah, yeah, because my phone, my battery was dying. So when I was 13, I saw Gamma Ray, I saw Stradivarius, I saw Blind Guardian, I saw Sabotage, I saw Halloween, all in the same year, live, right? And up to that point in Brazil, all that everybody knew was Iron Maiden. To this day, still is. Most metalheads in Brazil are obsessed with Iron Maiden and don't know much else. But these power metal bands came to Brazil all like, within like 2-3 months of each other, and I went to every show. I read somewhere that I know exactly where is a book called "This Is Your Brain on Music." That the music you listen to at age 13 and 14 is what stays with you forever. Now, the bands I heard those years, 13 and 14, are exactly what NorthTale sounds like. You know, it's a.
It marked your
I
DNA.
think what I'm trying to say is that age, 13 to 14 to 15, is very important on people, on what people end up listening to as adults. You know what I mean? So it's we never know what the future is going to be like because we don't know what kids will be listening to. I definitely see a shift into shit that's more that's have you heard the Billie Eilish album?
No, I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you.
Your kid doesn't listen to it?
No, he only listens to heavy metal.
Oh, okay. uh
Yeah,
Dude, Billie
actually, he
Eilish.
also had a shift because he started listening to power metal. That's how he got into heavy metal, was through power metal.
That's awesome.
And so he like for the first, since we had the YouTube channel, it's going to be 3 years. So for the first year and a half, all he would listen to is power metal, like Sabaton, Blind Guardian, like just power metal. Like that's all he would listen to. Now he's had a shift where he's listening to more death metal, black metal. He's listening to Mayhem, like Rotting Christ, like so. And now he barely listens to power metal. He still likes it, but he's had a shift towards more of the aggressive side. So that's pretty much all he listens to.
You know what's crazy, man? For me, that never happened. I never got into the extreme stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like it now, and obviously I work with David Vincent, so I'm playing Morbid
I was
Angel.
going to say, like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, no, no.
play it.
Yeah, but you know what? The first time I ever played death metal in my life was 2012 when I played with Vital Remains. And the reason I ended up playing with Vital Remains was because their singer was one of my best, still is one of my best friends. So they needed someone to fill in, and I was like, I'll do it. Like, but I mean, more because of the way I work, and how quickly I pick things up because I had like one day, but but I started digging deep into Morbid Angel and understanding that music uh, when I started working with David. And then because of that, because I learned, and again, 13, 14 year, 13, 14, 15 years of age. I wish that I listened to it when I was that age, but I didn't. I hated extreme metal. I was super elitist. I was like, oh, these guys can sing. That's all they growl. Anyway, so I learned to appreciate Morbid Angel and death metal in general because essentially the way I was introduced to the music was learning, so I'm like, oh, wait a second. So this is not a mistake. This is supposed to sound like that. That's literally how my ears were working at the beginning. I'm listening. I'm like, wait, did he fuck up in the studio? Let go back. No, because he's doing it again here when he repeats. But that note is wrong. Like, I had a whole period of that, of listening and being like, no, this is out of key. Oh, no, this, oh. So then I understood that the all this sourness is the point. So I'm like, okay, so what I have to do is to sound sour but convincingly. It's not a mistake. It really is supposed to be a note that's out of key. That's when I started to put everything together in my head until I finally was like, wow, this is fucking genius. You know? Um, it's orchestrated. It's not noise. I mean, yeah, it adds up to noise if you don't know what you're listening to. But I once I learned, I'm like, okay, well, if Morbid Angel is doing that, then what does Cannibal Corpse do? Because I have a cover band with a guitar player for Cannibal Corpse, and I don't really know much of their music. So I went to listen to it. I'm like, oh, holy shit, that's a completely different thing. How are they even the same style? How is that even the same style? Anyway, what I'm saying is I've learned about extreme metal as an adult, so it was very like, how do you say, surgical. I'm like, I didn't have the visceral thing that I just want to break shit. That's never happened to me. So when I see a show, sometimes like I'm playing these really difficult parts and I'm seeing people beating each other up. I'm like, motherfucker, I worked really hard in playing this and you guys are just punching each other. Fuck you. So, whereas as a kid, all I listened to was Halloween, Stratovarius. Then I had a hair metal phase a little bit after. I got really into Poison and Jet Boy and the whole glam thing. And then I moved to America and I started seeing that as an American and being like, oh, okay, no, I get it. I get why people make fun. Okay. And
So the question for you is, when is going to come the next phase, your metalcore phase?
Never. That will never happen. That will never happen. The closest thing to that I've done was Westfield Massacre. Have you heard that project?
No.
I actually done a metalcore record with Tim Young, the I Am Orbit drummer, and Tommy Vext, who's now in Bad Wolves. We had a band called Westfield Massacre. We did a fantastic record. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is metalcore, but it's very. Some of the reviews called it classically infused metalcore, which just means metalcore with a guitar player that knows the notes, But so it's pretty good. It's pretty good, man. I've done that. Now, you probably won't see me doing anything that isn't with Tommy like that, because Tommy is probably one of the best singers in the world, and now he's being recognized as such. Like the Bad Wolves is huge, but I knew that years ago when they did that record. He's a fantastic singer. I'll do anything with that guy. Me starting a metalcore band, true, no.
Oh man, you know what, dude, I love talking to you. You're like one of the greatest guys to talk about metal, to talk about music. And before I let you go, we've been talking almost for an hour. I only have one question left to ask you, and that is, how is your stock of toilet paper?
I have like two full packages, and I wonder why people are doing that. I don't get, dude. But it's scary because that's the one thing that's never there.
It's never.
Many times it's never there. It's like, what the fuck?
Like I grew up in Portugal. We had bidets, so toilet paper you could live without it. You know what I mean? Like I honestly I don't get the whole thing. Hopefully it gets restocked soon.
Well, I'll tell you, man, and that's what hysteria causes. I actually stocked because I eat, especially when I'm home and I want to stay in shape. I eat canned beans a lot because it's portion control. That way I don't need to cook a big thing or whatever. I bought like fucking 90 cans or something, because I'm thinking like 3 months because I eat it anyway. But I normally just go to the store and buy like 4. But I saw like the destruction. I'm like, holy shit, like what if I can go on black beans and meat and even seitan for like forever, I won't starve. But what if I can't find that, But then even me making fun of people doing that had to do it because I'm like, okay, shit, if there's not a problem, these people are gonna cause a problem.
Yeah. And I think the making fun of it to a certain extent is a good coping mechanism. It allows you to kind of almost like take away the severity of what's happening and allowing your brain to, for a minute or two, almost forget about how crazy the world is right now.
Yeah, because also we're as a society, probably because of social media, we are there's two things that we're doing that I think are awesome. First of all, we are actually being practicing solidarity a lot. I'm seeing people doing things to help people, um, but also like, oh man, I forgot what the point was. No, I was gonna say, as a society, we're practicing solidarity. Oh yeah, but we're also on the flip side of that, we're normalizing shit really quickly. You know, like a friend of mine made a post about what's happening in LA right now. He's like, yeah, everybody must stay at home, blah blah blah. Luckily, people are being smart and just complying. You know, now, if you ask me, man, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of the fact that the state gets to tell people to be home now. Isn't that the biggest divide that we have? You know, do you vote left wing? Do you vote right wing? Do you want the state to tell you what to do? Do you want to have freedom to do everything? And all of a sudden, it's okay for the state to tell us to stay home. Now I think is also a good point for people to, because we're normalizing the situation so much, for people to start thinking where they really stand with the left and right thing. You know, you probably, I'm sure you heard of the Trump incentive of giving people money.
Oh yeah, the check.
I mean, dude, that's the biggest clusterfuck. Like, okay, so if you're a right winger, you're like, okay, so the Democrats, do you want my president's money now? Is that your president now? Whereas the Democrats are like, oh, so you want that socialist check now?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
100%.
it's like this is where what it came down to. It's like literally people don't know what the fuck they're talking about up to this point, So I think it's the same way that I said earlier, that is a good time for us to look at the future with music. Is also a good time to look at the future of how we're gonna move. Like I don't believe in socialism. I don't believe in to work for 10 to reap the benefits. I don't believe in that. But maybe we shouldn't be so far on the right, or so far on the left. We should be meeting a little bit in the middle more.
I agree with you. I've always considered myself more a person on the left, and that has changed now. It's funny enough, it's changed as I've gotten older. Maybe I've gotten wiser, but what I'm saying is a lot of the things that I started to realize is that my mother used to tell me when I was a kid that the bed, when you're laying down on a bed with three people with one blanket, the best spot is the middle, because the guy on one side will pull the blanket to his side, the other guy on the other side will pull the blanket to the other side, but the guy in the middle is always covered regardless of where the blanket shifts. So the more I look at life the way it is, the more I realize that there are good things about the left. There are good things about the right. We just need to kind of figure out which ones are which and then try to incorporate both. Because I don't think you can have a place where you can be just on one side or the other and completely ignore the other side, because it doesn't seem reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of what I'm seeing is, especially after this, like with people politicizing everything, a lot of what I'm seeing is like people on one side taking a comment from a person that's slightly on the other side as like, this is the worst thing ever. And I'm guilty of this, man. I talked shit about Bernie Sanders for a long time, made fun of people who were going to vote for him until I watched his interview with Joe Rogan. I'm like, wait a second. So he's not really a communist. He's not really trying to get me to open my house to 7 families. This is what I hear other people that don't like him say. I think a lot of people just aren't taking the time to do that.
I agree with you.
Listen to the other guy and see what he says. You might disagree with 7 things, but what if there's 3 that you agree?
I know, but you live in a world that if you agree with, if you, the world we live in is like this. If you're on the right you're almost forced to agree with everything that comes from that camp. And even if you disagree with one thing, the rest of the people kick you out because now you're not worthy anymore because you don't agree with 100% of what they're saying. Same thing is happening on the other side. So if you're on the left side and you only agree with 8 out of 10 things, that's not good enough anymore. You have to agree with, it has to be 100% compliance. And that's not how human beings are. Like, I mean, I agree with things on the, like, I'm not a huge fan of Trump, but there's certain things that he says and that he has done that I agree with. But the point is, the moment I say that, automatically everything else that I will say after that gets completely dismissed, because if you agree with him, you're a horrible person, and then I'm going to dismiss everything else. And same thing happens with the left. If you don't agree with what Bernie Sanders says, even with one thing, then you get completely dismissed. And I think this tribal way of looking at politics or looking at social life, it doesn't work in real life. This works in a virtual world where we don't have to face each other and we don't have to necessarily live with each other. But in a real world where you depend of me and I depend of you and all of this interaction needs to happen, we need to be able to say that, like my soccer team, perfect example. I mean, you know how people are passionate about their soccer and their team, regardless of what the team is.
When I come from Brazil, they fight over that shit.
Yeah, people will die over that shit, right? So I'm the kind of guy, I'm watching a game. If I see the referee making a bad call that helps my team, I'm the first guy to say, holy shit, that was a bad call. But I'll take it because it helped my team. But I have friends that will never do that. They'll never admit that the referee made a bad call that helped their team. You know what I mean? And that to me is a dangerous way of thinking and of looking at the world.
It is, man. It is. And the more, well, I always find it hilarious when I hear like death metal guys, because they're mostly atheists, death metal guys on the far right. Like, oh, you agree with everything, huh? Including God, because I mean, Trump is God fearing, so you believe in God and one nation under God, right? Death metal guy. So it really is that simple. It's like, oh, so if you agree with everything on the right, then you got to be a Christian. If you agree with everything on the left, then you got to be an atheist.
Yeah, it's just not real. It's just not real.
And it's happening everywhere too, man. It's happening in Brazil too.
Yeah, Brazil is a tough situation there. It really is.
Dude, I was a huge supporter of the current president.
Bolsonaro?
I was, and my entire family voted for him. Pretty much everyone I know voted for him, really. But the way that guy has acted in the past week made me lose respect completely for him. And I've been getting in arguments with people, with friends over that. Like, Bolsonaro is fucking up. He's like saying this. Because here in America, they reported that he tested positive for coronavirus.
Yeah, I saw that. But then they said he didn't. Or he said
his son? Yeah. Now, his son in Brazil is talking mad shit about Fox News, which is on their side, saying that Fox News made that up. Anyway, so I'm talking to someone, one of my friends, I'll be like, oh, did you hear about Bolsonaro being positive? Now, this is someone that's really close to me. No, he's not positive. He's negative. He's all over the press. I'm like, oh, here in the States, they said that they heard it, that he was positive. Oh, that's fake news. I'm like, no, but that's Fox News. That's not CNN. Like that's your side. And they said, and they actually also said that his son said that he had the virus.
Yeah, that's how it was reported.
This person goes, well, maybe his son said that, but he sure doesn't have it. And I'm like, we can't talk. We cannot conversate if you're not even willing to accept that maybe that's true. I'm not saying it is, but maybe. Well, is it true or is it not? If you're not, if your infatuation with the president is so big that even the thought of him lying will let you fight with someone that you really like, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So I ended the conversation. I'm like, okay, you know what? I didn't say anything. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Like they're not willing to consider that maybe that happened. But that happens here too.
It's happening more and more. It's happening, and I think this virus, this problem now, I think it's going to put a lot of those things out in the open, and it's going to change a lot of the dynamics. It's going to be really interesting to see how everything comes out after this. That's for sure. It's going to be a much different world. The only thing I can guarantee you is we'll still be listening to music, and hopefully you stay healthy and you'll continue to make music for us to listen to.
Yeah, and you guys can watch it on live stream because we can't play shows. Hey man, thank you very much, dude. I'm a huge fan of yours. I watched pretty much every video you ever put out, I think.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I love the fact that you took the time to sit down with me and chat, because you're like an open heart. Like, you're not a guy that hides what he thinks. You always say what you think, and I appreciate that. Regardless if you agree with it or not, I appreciate people who are honest, speak their mind, and you've been a blast to talk to. I'm hoping that
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this thing gets over, and then the next time you're touring and you're coming to Toronto, I'm gonna go see you at the show, and we can have a beer or something.
Dude, I haven't been in Toronto since 2015, the TSO tour. Is that where the Canadian Tire venue is?
I think that's in Ottawa.
Ottawa. Which one is the venue there? Toronto. Oh, no, Toronto. Oh, my God, Toronto's been even longer. Is the Opera House in Toronto?
Yeah, Opera House is in Toronto.
Oh, shit. Dude, last time I was in Toronto was like 13 years ago with Trivium. Yeah. It's been a long time. It was Trivium, Celador. Who else was in that tour? One of these super technical bands too. Animals, not Animals as Leaders. No.
13 years ago. That's a long time ago.
Holy shit. Man, that was 2000. That was 2007. But yeah, the Opera House. I remember. The Canadian. That's Ottawa, and then Montreal. The Fouffon de la Clique. That's Montreal, right?
Montreal.
Okay. Yeah, I think the last time I was there was with Trivium. Cool, man.
All right, man. Well, it was a blast talking to you. And keep working on new material for NorthTale. Looking forward to that and some of those playthroughs.
Yeah, man. Look, likewise. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Take care, man.
Thank you, my friend.